Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome yet to another episode of the Weekly Five. This is the third episode of the series, and as usual, my name is Wallace Shege Munyere, and I'm the Daktari. Let's go. Let's see what we shall cover for this week. For this week, the scope will be the knee joint, the three compartments of the leg, so that's the anterior, lateral, and posterior compartment, the ankle joint, and the foot. For the foot, I'll focus on the dorsum of the foot and I'll not say much regarding the plantar aspect of the foot. As usual, each part has 5 questions, or rather, we have 5 questions, each has 3 parts. Let's start. So, on to our first question. This question is testing your knowledge on the joints and the bones of the foot or in the lower part of the leg. So we've been asked to name the joint outlined in purple and state its type and variety. So this is the joint being asked. So name that joint. The name of that joint is the tibiotalar joint. Okay, so between tibia and talus, so tibiotalar joint or the talocrural joint. The type, it's a synovial joint. The variety, according to the shape of the articulating surfaces, it's a the tenon and mortise variety. Okay, so they have a cold, but let's continue. The next question tests our knowledge of the bones, the tarsal bones of the foot, A, B, and C. A is the heel bone, which is also known as the calcaneus. B is talus, and C is navicular bone. So we've also been asked to name the joint outlined in red and state 2 movements which occur there. So this joint, can see it clearly there. It's the joint between talus here and calcaneus. So if you've named it as the talocalcaneal joint, that's correct. But since it is below talus, the other name is the subtalar joint. So the movements which occur there are the foot eversion and inversion. Okay, so foot eversion and inversion. Those are the movements which occur at that joint. And we are done with the first question. On to the second question, which tests our knowledge of the anterior, the dorsum of the foot. Let me put it like that, the dorsum of the foot. We've been asked to identify A, B, and C there. So structure A here, you can see it's a vessel. Okay, it's a vessel. And this vessel, ideally, what has been removed here is what is known as the extensor retinaculum. So the extensor retinaculum usually cover that part. It has been removed to reveal the structures which pass underneath it. And structure A is the anterior tibial artery. Okay, you can see it's the anterior tibial artery. And from which you can see B is branching off. Okay, so B is a branch of A. So that's the lateral malleolar artery, and C is a continuation of A. So the continuation of anterior tibial artery onto the dorsum of the foot is the dorsal artery of the foot, which is also known as the dorsalis pedis artery. Now, regarding F, we have been asked to state, so F, first of all, we need to identify F. So you can see F is sending this tendon. You can see this tendon is coming to insert into the great toe, the hallux. So this muscle here is the extensor hallucis longus, extensor hallucis longus. So you've first identified the muscle, then what is the innervation? It's innervated by the deep peroneal nerve, and its action is it dorsiflex the big toe. Okay, so it dorsiflex the big toe, and it is also a weak dorsiflexor of the ankle. So the chief action is dorsiflexion of the big toe, and the other action is it's a weak dorsiflexor of the ankle joint. Dorsiflexion is that movement you perform when you walk on your heels. Okay, so when you walk on your heels, that's dorsiflexion. When you walk on your toes, That's plantar flexion. Identify the structure labeled E and states its innervation. This is structure E. You can see it's a tendon. So it's a tendon, but it is also coming to insert into the great toe. So that's the tendon of the extensor hallucis brevis. And it's also innervated by the deep peroneal nerve, the deep peroneal nerve. Okay, on to the third question, which is testing your knowledge of the knee joint. These are structures within the knee joint, the intracapsular knee joint structures. We've been asked to identify structure A and B. So structure A, you can see it's this semicircular structure. It's almost half a circle. It's a half a circle, but it is broader posteriorly. You can see it's broader posteriorly. So this knee meniscus here is the medial knee meniscus. Okay, so that's the medial knee meniscus. When compared to B, which obviously now becomes the lateral one, you can see that B is more of 4/5 of a circle. It's 4 out of 5 parts of a circle. Okay, so if this was a circle, you can see that it's more than a semicircle. Okay, it's more than a semicircle. It's almost, you just need a fifth of a circle to complete it. So it's 4/5 part of a circle. Whereas the lateral one is more of half a circle, which is a semicircle. Okay, then we've been asked to state anatomical differences between the two. One of the anatomical difference which you can clearly see is in terms of the shape. The medial one is a semicircle, whereas the lateral one is 4/5 of a circle. Okay, you can also see another difference in terms of shape. The medial one is broader posteriorly, whereas the lateral one has a uniform width. Okay, it has a uniform width. Okay. Another difference is in terms of attachment to the knee joint capsule. The medial knee meniscus is attached to the knee joint capsule and also to the medial collateral ligament of the tibial collateral ligament, whereas the lateral one has no attachment to the knee joint capsule. Those are the anatomical differences, and I'll show you a table which displays that. So what are the structures which are involved in what is known as this clinical triad known as the unhappy triad? So in the unhappy triad, there is the tear of 3 structures, and these include the anterior cruciate ligament, the medial collateral ligament, and the medial knee meniscus. So that is what is known as the unhappy triad. These are the anatomical differences between the medial and the lateral knee menisci. So in terms of shape, I said the medial one is a semicircle, the other one is 4/5 of a circle. The medial one is broader posteriorly, whereas the lateral one has a uniform width. The medial one is firmly attached to the capsule and to the medial collateral ligament, which is also known as the tibial collateral ligament, whereas the lateral one has no capsular attachments. Okay, now on to the fourth question, which is testing your knowledge of the tarsal tunnel. So the tarsal tunnel is roofed by the flexor retinaculum, which has been removed here to expose the structures of the tarsal tunnel. And you can see the structures of the tarsal tunnel starting with B here. So the flexor retinaculum is usually attached to this here is the lateral malleolus and to the calcaneus. So it usually move like that, okay? So the flexor retinaculum is ideally at that point, but it has been removed to show you the structures within the tarsal tunnel. So we've been asked to name A, C, and D, okay? So A here, maybe you can identify this here. Let me name it as K. K is the Achilles tendon, okay, Achilles tendon, and running closely to the Achilles tendon is what is known as the plantaris tendon, okay. So A is the plantaris tendon. Structure C here, if you follow C keenly, because it's this structure here, just posterior to B, okay, so it's the second structure, okay, it's the second structure within the tarsal tunnel after B, and that second structure there is the flexor hallucis longus, okay, the flexor hallucis, sorry, the flexor digitorum, rather, it's the flexor digitorum longus, okay? Not the flexor hallucis longus. Yes, I'll show you a mnemonic which will make you remember how these structures are arranged within the tarsal tunnel, okay? So that you don't confuse as I have, okay? So that is the flexor digitorum longus tendon, okay? And structure D here, just posterior to the flexor digitorum longus tendon, that's the posterior tibial artery, okay? The posterior tibial artery. Then we've been asked to name the terminal branches of E. So you can see E. Okay, let me erase this. So you can see E, this structure E is lying just behind D. Okay, it comes after D, so that's D in front of E. So the structure after the posterior tibial artery, that's the tibial nerve, and the tibial and the terminal branches of tibial nerve include the lateral plantar nerve and the medial plantar nerve. So we've been asked to state the actions of B. B here is tibialis posterior. The actions of tibialis posterior include ankle, plantar flexion, and foot inversion. Okay. So here is a mnemonic to remind you how structures are arranged within the tarsal tunnel as you move from the lateral malleolus towards the calcaneus. So you start with the tibialis posterior, then the flexor digitorum longus, and then the posterior tibial artery, and then the tibial nerve, and then the flexor hallucis longus, flexor hallucis longus. So Tom, Dick, and nervous Harry. Okay, so tibialis posterior, flexor digitorum longus, posterior tibial artery, tibial nerve, and flexor hallucis longus. I hope you won't remember the mnemonic and forget what it actually means. I'd rather it's better you forget the mnemonic, but you remember the sequence of structures. Okay. On to the fifth question, the final question. Now here we are seeing the structures of the extensor compartment on the anterior aspect of the ankle. So we've been asked to name A, B, and D. So A here, which is the most medial structure, B, and then D. So A, the most medial structure within the extensor compartment. So the extensor retinaculum has been removed to expose the structure which pass underneath it. And A, the most medial, is the tibialis anterior. So that's tibialis anterior. You can say tibialis anterior, the tibialis anterior tendon. Okay. B, you can see it's the third structure. So we have this structure, which I'll name as, allow me to name it as K. So K there would be extensor, hallucis, longus. So B is now extensor digitorum longus. And then D here is not part of that compartment. It's this structure attached to the your small toe, which helps that small toe to move outwards. So it abducts the small toe. So it's the abductor digiti minimi. Okay, abductor digiti minimi. So we've been asked to identify C, rather state the elevation of C. So C is this muscle on the dorsum of the foot. And you can see it is giving these minute tendons which go to attach to digits 2 through 5. And this muscle C is the extensor digitorum brevis, which is innervated by the deep peroneal nerve. This muscle here, which has not been labeled, you can see sending a tendon to the great toe. This is the extensor hallucis brevis. Okay, it's the short one. The long one, the extensor hallucis longus, is this one. K, extensor hallucis longus. Okay, and then this one, which has also been labeled, let me label it M. This here is the peroneus tertius, or the fibularis tertius muscle. Okay, then we've been asked to name E and state its action. You can see we have two tendons here, one there, and the one below. The one below named as E, that is the fibularis longus tendon. Okay, fibularis longus tendon, or the peroneus longus tendon. The one above it, which has not been labeled, I'll label it as N. Now that is peroneus brevis tendon. Okay, so the action of peroneus longus is foot eversion. Foot eversion. Okay, and I think I'll just show you uh, uh, another uh, image for you to just remember. Remember this mnemonic here of how structures pass under the extensor retinaculum, and this is how they are arranged from medial to lateral. Okay, so remember the most medial structure, so the mnemonic is Timothy has a very nasty deceased foot. So most medial T, that is tibialis anterior. H is the extensor hallucis, long as A is the anterior tibial artery, and then the vein. Then N is the deep peroneal nerve. D is extensor digitorum longus, and F is the fibularis tertius, or the peroneus tertius. And with that, I think we have come to the end of the weekly 5 for this week. But stay tuned for next week's weekly 5. Also, please check out for lower limb playlist on this YouTube channel of mine and get the detailed anatomy videos. Remember, this is just an overview. Thank you for your time. See you or hear you or hear me from next week's weekly 5. Stay tuned. Bye bye.